In Kentucky, we don't just take chances, we bet big. This month, I'm sitting down with 4 Kentuckians who made 4 bold moves and asking one question: what was the biggest bet that you ever took on yourself? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Town & Country Ford. No matter where life's adventures lead you, Town & Country Ford is along for the ride. What inspired you to begin to cook in the first place?
My mom and dad got me a subscription to Gourmet magazine. This was probably like when I was a senior in high school.
Were you surprised in the first couple of years how the restaurant took off? What was like that moment that you realized, oh wow, people are really liking this?
Well, the first 2 weeks or month maybe, business was just trickling in.
Did you feel the pressure then of, oh wow, how do we keep this up? She is the James Beard nominated Queen of Kentucky Cuisine who turned the Bluegrass state into a global dining destination. Welcome to the best bet, the woman that proves that bourbon's best friend is always on the plate. Chef Ouita Michel, it is so good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Girl, I've been trying to sit down and talk to you for months. Getting on your schedule is so difficult, and that's a testament to success, and things are obviously going really, really well for you. How do you keep it all straight?
I don't all the time. I have a fantastic team of people that I get to work with every day, and a lot of them are half my age. So they kind of keep, in some ways, I feel like you just keep me on the track and I'll keep going. But yes, I feel so lucky to have the career that I've had in Lexington and Central Kentucky, and I love it. I love what I do.
I love to always go back to the beginning and what inspired you to begin to cook in the first place.
Well, you know, my mom was a fantastic cook, and my grandmother, both of them were wonderful cooks. But really, I spent my childhood, and that was in the 70s. So, in those days, our childhoods were a little different. We spent all day outside. We had big gardens. We cooked every night. From the time I was a little tiny girl through college, really, I cooked dinner with my mom almost every night. Or my dad. My dad did a lot of cooking too. And it was part of our family's culture. And it just kindled in me a deep interest. I remember when I was a teenager, my mom and dad got me a subscription to Gourmet magazine. This was probably like when I was a senior in high school. And I used to just read that magazine cover to cover, just thinking about all the restaurants. The funny thing is, I love debate. I was a competitive debater in high school and then for the University of Kentucky. And when you're a really competitive debater, you travel all over the country and you debate. And we won the national championship the year I was a senior at UK. And so we would go to Boston and debate at Harvard, and we would debate at Northwestern and Chicago and all these different places. And every place we started going to different restaurants, like Greek restaurants in Chicago, Indian restaurants in Boston, legal seafood in Boston. And it became part of something I fell in love with, the restaurant culture, because there was so much I was exposed to at a young age.
Because of the debate team, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
Because of the debate team, I fell in love with food.
I have some great friends who are fantastic lawyers, and I think to myself all the time, why didn't I go to law school? My life would be so much easier.
No. What was it for you that made you pivot to say, you know what, I want to make this a full-time career for me? I can cook my way to success.
At the age of 21, as a senior in college, having just won the tournament and all that stuff, I felt like I was on a track that I hadn't really chosen. I chose debate, but I wasn't sure that I'd actually chosen law school. And I didn't feel like I was in control of my own life. I felt like I was just being pushed along. And so I took a pause. I moved to New York with 2 of my friends who had gone to Dartmouth College and debated, and we knew each other through debate, and became their roommate, and opened up the New York Times and got a job in a restaurant just to see what it would be like. And my dad told me, well, you'll have to support yourself doing that. And I did. I worked for like 2.5 years in Manhattan, and then applied to the Culinary Institute of America and met my husband on the first day of school there, and the rest is kind of history. I fell in love with it. I fell in love. The restaurant culture of New York City is no joke. It's really hard. But the people, I met people from all over the world and got the opportunity to work and cook with them It was life changing, and that's really what could, because I had such a positive experience doing that and exploring all the restaurants of New York City. This was in 1987. You know, it was a long time ago, but it kindled in me really a passion for owning my own restaurant. And I thought for a long time that I would stay in New York. But when my husband proposed, my boyfriend proposed to me after culinary school, and my mom just said, "You can't get married in New York. You have to come home to get married."
Yeah.
I
mean,
yeah.
You've got to get married in Kentucky.
Yes. So I came back to Lexington, and this was in '93. This was a long time ago, and I fell in love with it. I loved being home. I loved rekindling an adult relationship with my mom, and I treasure that time. It was one of the best things I ever did because she passed away, 10 years ago now. But we had that time, that relationship, that experience, and I loved all the farms and the landscape, things that I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. Until you go away.
Mm-hmm.
When you were in New York, what did you miss the most about the South?
The pace and the connection that people have. And when you're 22 years old and living in Manhattan, you're all about what that pace of life is like. You're really,
Or you get run over.
yeah, you're hustling and it's exciting and you're anonymous and all of a sudden you can choose whoever you want to be. And after a few years, it kind of gets like, wait, who's my community? You do establish a community, but when I came back here, I realized I could write a business plan and I could take it to 3 people who were running banks and they could give me feedback. That it was a lot. It was what the tools that you need to have to succeed in business are very accessible in Kentucky to young people. Not to everybody, but to a lot of people. And I really had that experience. And I loved the small farming. I loved Kentucky's agriculture. And that was something that I didn't have a lot of experience. We had gardens growing up, but when I came back to go to the farmer's market, it was wonderful. And to be able to visit farms. And I remember my first job in Lexington, returning from New York, was at Dudley's Restaurant in Lexington, and it was in its old location, and there was a farmer's market just 2 blocks down the street. And so just participating in that as a young chef, that did not happen for me in New York City, and having farmers bring all kinds of products to the restaurant too, never happened in New York. So it was really wonderful.
I feel like you were on the cutting edge of farm to table before farm to table was cool.
It's always been part of my ethos. A lot of people have participated in that, so I don't have ownership over it, but I was reminded recently that we put it in our business plan for Holly Hill Inn, and this is our 25th anniversary of owning the Holly Hill Inn this year. I've always felt like it was part of what your ingredients are so critical to what you can prepare and how it tastes. And so I always felt like locally produced ingredients was something that every Kentucky chef it was our wealth. It's the wealth of our Commonwealth. And I've often said, there is no Kentucky cuisine without the Kentucky farmer. And that's really true. What we grow here is what makes our cooking very unique. And it doesn't matter what style we're cooking. It doesn't matter if you're Ed Lee and you're exploring your Korean background, you're using Kentucky ingredients, Kentucky bourbon, or it's part of our Kentucky food culture. Or if you're making soup, beans, and cornbread that we've been making for generations here, it really doesn't matter. The recipe is less important than the ingredient is. And I really felt that when we were looking for a restaurant to open, and that was one reason we landed in Midway at the Holly Hill Inn.
And was that the first restaurant that you opened in Kentucky?
Yes.
Holly Hill Inn?
Yes, 25 years in business now.
How did you land on that location?
Well, it's interesting.
And that house?
That house is incredible. It was owned by the same family, the Parrish Rouse family, for 100 years. Isaac Parrish bought it in 1900, and he put the front porch on, and we purchased it from his grandson, Isaac Rouse, in the year 2000, and We didn't change. The footprint has not changed since 1900, since the porch went on it. And behind, when we were replacing the hood, you and I were talking about, we just got a new hood at the Holly Hill Inn.
Big day. It's like, oh, we're renovating something.
I know, right?
We don't need the whole thing to fall in. We've got to do this.
We've got to do this. And I was so scared, but the guys that did it were wonderful. Behind that wall where our stove is, and now it's all encased in stainless steel. It looks beautiful, and it's, super sturdy. But behind that is the original hearth to the original kitchen. Outdoor kitchen that we found. It's all bricked up, but you can still see the outlines.
Is that the next renovation?
Oh, gosh. No, I'm done.
To show that off?
It's been a dream to own that place.
So what was the original business plan for what Holly Hill Inn would become?
There are restaurants around the country, and this was very true at that time. So that was 25 years ago. So in the mid to late 90s, there were restaurants, one of which is the Inn at Little Washington, which is, of course, a little bit more ritzier than we are at the Holly Hill, and we didn't have quite the money. And decorating isn't as much my strong suit as cooking. So they have a very Victorian, lush environment. But I love the restaurant, love Patrick O'Connell, very, very inspired by him. There was another restaurant called the Herb Farm north of Seattle that sat in a little farm, inside of a garden, kind of not a farm, but actually a garden. And that's what the Holly Hill Inn felt to me. And also, I've never been to France. I'm going actually this year. But I loved reading these books by a woman named MFK Fisher. And she wrote a book called Gastronomical Me. It's the story of her life as told through food. And one of the stories is she's traveling through the French countryside. She comes on this old home, and she's served this incredible meal by the person who cooked it. And I've always had that as an inspiration for what I'm doing at Holly Hill Inn. I do feel like that we have that kind of countryside in Kentucky. We have a beautiful landscape that we live in, and sometimes we don't even see. I just feel like we're so used to it. Mm-hmm. But our landscape is incredible, and it's a joy to welcome people into it.
Were you surprised in the first couple of years how the restaurant took off? What was like that moment that you realized, oh, wow, people are really liking this?
Yes, I was very surprised. I remember in those days, the newspapers wrote restaurant reviews. So we had Susan Rigler came up and reviewed the Holly Hill Inn for the Courier-Journal. And then there was then Sarah Fritchner wrote an article, and I still have this, Young Hot Chefs of Kentucky, where this was 25 years ago. I know.
Yes.
So it was me and Anthony Lamas. I'm proud to say we're both still in business.
Yes.
I love him. And I'm trying to remember who the third, Amber McCool, or I think was her name, the third chef was. And it was just incredible. The first 2 weeks or month, maybe, business was just trickling in. And I remember laying awake at night, because at that time, my husband and I lived inside the Holly Hill Inn. We lived on the second floor, and we ran the business on the first floor. And then the reviews came out, and we were overrun, and then we've never looked back.
Did you feel the pressure then of, oh, wow, how do we keep this up? Because it's one thing to get noticed,
yeah,
and the accolades come in, but then how do you maintain it?
Yeah. It's always still a fear of mine. It's always a struggle. And I feel like there are ebbs and flows. When you have a restaurant for 25 years, there are going to be really high and low points in every business. So the key is to try to keep them as close together as you can, keep the lows high and the highs not, within range of the lows, so that you're hopefully creating an excellent standard and you're bouncing between.
Yeah.
But we were lucky enough to buy the home right next door to the Holly Hill Inn, so we do live on the property. It's a 10-acre property, and that allowed us to be parents to our daughter without daycare. We just threw her around like a little football, poor thing. She grew up as a restaurant rugrat. But I know that during some of those times, and there are times you learn such difficult lessons in business.
Yes,
sometimes you expand too fast. Sometimes you expand too much. and things don't work out. And all the time you're juggling the quality of everything that you're doing. So
Was there a bet during that time that you made on the business and on yourself that you said, I'm going to try this, whether it was getting a chef, was it trying a new menu item that you said, oh, wow, that almost didn't happen, but that is what is making us right now?
yes, well, we had some advice, and it was painful advice for me at the time. This was some time ago, maybe 15 years ago, maybe around that time. And the advice was, well, you can run your business or you can run your kitchen, but you cannot do both. And I thought, well, but I'm a chef.
I want to have my hands in everything.
Yeah, but it was great advice.
Good.
And I did have to, now I'm back in, I step in and out of the kitchen. I've never stopped cooking, but I'm not the executive chef. I'm not our culinary director. We have an incredible culinary director, and he runs, all the chefs work for him. And he essentially, and he works with a partner who's our director of operations. But I still cook every day. I try to cook within a context and in deep collaboration with Tyler, our culinary director. But yeah, I don't run that. There are a lot of things I do have to run, but I cannot run the kitchen. I don't write the schedules. I don't do the purchasing. I give feedback on menus, and I help brainstorm menus, but often that's my role in menu development. I give a lot of feedback. Some of it's not always positive, but
that's your role. Overseeing. I mean, it's like the brand. I was trying to count up how many places that you have now, and correct me if I'm wrong. You have Holly Hill Inn, Wallace Station,
right?
Windy Corner,
Yes.
Smithtown Seafood,
Yes.
Kim's Cafe.
No, not Kim's. Oh, Zim's.
Zim's Cafe.
Zim's we closed this year in January. So that was one of that restaurant we opened just before COVID in downtown Lexington. And a lot of really good lessons learned, but the main one being how much our downtown community has shifted away from lunches. It was mainly a lunch, designed as a happy lunch diner, breakfast and lunch diner in downtown Lexington. And there are a lot of people just not working in that way anymore.
They're not. There's still more. There's more things to name. Honeywood?
Yes, Honeywood.
Okay. The Thirsty Tiger?
The Thirsty Fox.
The Thirsty Fox.
And that was part of Zim's. So the two of them went bye-bye together. They were in the downtown courthouse, the historic downtown courthouse in Lexington.
Glens Creek Cafe.
Glens Creek is no more, but it was what we were doing at Woodford Reserve. So we had, for more than 10 years, I was the chef in residence at Woodford Reserve's home place in Woodford County. And we had a little sandwich shop there, and we did all their catering. But during COVID, all of that shut down. So that's what closed that. But the Midway School Bakery is our other one.
That's a lot, Ouita.
I know, it's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And we even lost one, and I feel like it's still a lot.
I'm so glad you remind me of Woodford when you were at Woodford Reserve. What did that experience teach you that you still apply to business today? Because that was really one of the first that would have, now it's every distillery has to have a restaurant or some kind of experience on site. That was one of the first that did it first.
They did. Mr. Owsley Brown, when he built at that point, it was when he resurrected LeBreau and Graham is what they called it at that time. He wanted it to be a place where people could visit and potentially eat and all these things. I was so lucky to be able to work with Chris Morris, and he's the master distiller emeritus now. Elizabeth McCall is the master distiller for Woodford Reserve. And I learned so much about tasting bourbon, the flavor wheel. So I learned a lot just as a person about the bourbon industry. And when I started, Woodford Reserve just had one, the Distiller's Select. And so to take them through all the brand extensions and lines of the rye, the double oaked, all of that stuff was really, really interesting. And I really feel like I developed my palate there, not just for bourbon, but in all kinds of ways, just really, really focusing in on that. And that was through learning a lot of it from Chris Morris.
Do you think that opened your eyes to the way that bourbon pairs with food and how they complement each
Absolutely. I really wanted us to, all the food that we made on property, to whether it was a sandwich, whatever it was, if you were eating it, on that home place grounds, it needed to go great with Woodford, or it needed to have Woodford in it. And so that was really fun. The recipe development, all the menu development, we did a ton. We would do things for media that would come in for what did he call it? Master's collection is what they would call it. So Double Oaked actually started as a master's collection, and they would bring the media in, and we would do a special tasting, and we would make bread. We would make bread out of the mash bill, and he always had a culinary puzzle for me.
All right, pause. I have so many more questions. Quick little pause here. We're coming right back with Chef Ouita Michel. I grew up in a Ford family. My dad worked at the Louisville Ford assembly plant. And it wasn't just a brand for us, it was a way of life. And that's the thing about Ford, is that they're woven into a part of our culture here in Kentucky and across America. So no matter where life's adventures may take you, Town & Country Ford is along for the ride. Whether you're a neat sipper or a cocktail king, the ultimate pilgrimage is calling. The Kentucky Bourbon Festival returns to the bourbon capital of the world, Bardstown, Kentucky, September 10th through the 13th. Tickets go on sale soon. Mark your calendars for April and go to kybourbonfestival.com.
Come on.
Welcome back. I'm sitting down with Chef Ouita Michel, and we have just popped open the nicest bottle of bourbon. And we're talking about food and bourbon, which is perfect, because I wanted to ask you about the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, because that was like literally in your backyard for so many years with Woodford Reserve. What is the bottle of bourbon that you would take to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival and pair with meals there, if like with your legendary cooking?
With my legendary cooking, I do feel like I'm kind of a Woodford girl. I live in Woodford County. It's our hometown bourbon. And I started out with the Distiller Select there. We started with a flavor wheel. And Chris Morris had an old floppy disk that they put into a cookbook, a Woodford Reserve cookbook that was published in the early 2000s. And when I started at Woodford, I pulled that out, and I took all of the things that I could find and make into an ingredient and put them on a plate, and then just started eating them and drinking them with bourbon. So like toasted hazelnut, orange, dried cranberry, dried cherry, dried apricot, whatever it was. And that's what I've, actually had the honor of taking to the Bourbon Festival many years to do with Chris. So I would take Woodford, I would take Distiller Select, maybe with a little bit of Double Oaked at the end for some dessert. And what I would pair with it, I love to flame scallops in Woodford. This is an old Kentucky, old French recipe that's now Kentucky. Pan sear the scallops so they get a rich caramelization. Add your distillers, flip them a couple times, add your Distiller Select and flame them up, and then shallots and creme fraiche and fresh tarragon. It's a beautiful pairing, and a lot of people wouldn't think of it because they would think it's too strong for a scallop, but it's beautiful.
Oh, that sounds lovely. What is France going to do when you arrive here there this
cannot
year?
wait.
They can't keep you. They can't.
I won't stay.
What's going to happen next? And when I listen to your career, and I think of the way that, it ebbs and flows like any business would.
Sure.
What is different about the business today that you've realized, oh, wow, we have to pivot in a couple of different directions? Because growing up, I loved watching Martha Stewart. I loved getting her magazines.
Yeah.
My aunt gave me gourmet magazines. Can't say I'm a cook, but I just enjoyed the presentation of it and the beauty of it. And success then was defined as you got a cookbook, a storefront, and you're on a TV show. And that was it.
Yeah.
That's not reality anymore. Like that's not, for some people, I think if you have a trust fund and
Yeah.
then you can sustain that. But that model is not like a sustainable model. And I've just heard so many people say you've got to kind of approach things very differently. Like what is your take on how to pivot in this modern world, and a social media world too?
In a social media world, I was going to say things are, I think, let me take my time answering this. There are monumental changes happening now in our industry, and not all of them bad, but the way that we approach our daily meal as a society has changed. And we all saw it coming. We've all been talking about it for a long time, but now we're in the generation that really does pretty much get almost, I would say, most of their meals or the majority of their meals from outside the home. And we were talking about my childhood.
Yeah.
The majority of my meals came from inside that home, in that kitchen. So when you're eating the majority of your meals from outside the home, whether it's from a meal kit at the grocery store, a fast food restaurant, or DoorDash, or whatever it is that you're doing as a young person, and to find that dinner or that lunch, what's happening, I think, is the restaurant meal is losing its special qualities. Like when I was growing up, going to the restaurant was super special, and going to a fancy restaurant was a real celebration. But if you're eating at a restaurant all the time, how does then the restaurant meal become special? It's really important that everything is handmade, not made from those are the things that I'm trying to emphasize at Holly Hill Inn. But at the same time, we have all these casual restaurants. They have to be price competitive. Their food has to travel well, which is something I'm really, really working on now. So instead of just getting an old ratty thing from DoorDash, I want whatever you get from one of our restaurants to be beautiful when you get it. So what does that packaging look like? How can that packaging be ecological? What does the food look like when the person gets it? How does it age in their fridge? All kinds of things that we're looking at like that in our
These
company.
are the things I complain about after I order something and it's in a container and now it's soggy and doesn't taste the way it does in the restaurant. I'm so mad and I won't go back to those restaurants ever again.
Yes, it's hard. It's hard to navigate. And I feel you. So I'm like always trying to figure out, how do we get the fish and chips from Smithtown and the fresh French fries to the guest at home in a good way? So we're really working on that. And the other thing that I think is a really big trend is GLP-1s and the impact that they have on appetites and the decrease in alcohol consumption, which I don't think is a bad thing. But we can't ignore those. Right. We have to embrace them and move with them. So places like Honeywood, it's really important that we're reevaluating our menu there right now and thinking we need to go smaller plates. We need to have a range of servings. Everything can't be giant. We went through that whole this is still very true, I think, in a lot of steakhouse concepts. I think the proportions are huge. The price is big, and because they're charging a lot on the price point, I'm not judging because I've been there myself and I'm still there. Then what we want to try to emphasize is smaller servings of higher quality ingredients without raising the price and potentially lowering the prices on some of the smaller plates. So just creating a range that would include all different kinds of appetites and price points is what I'm really thinking about and looking at right now. That's my pivot right now.
How has social media changed the way you brand and market and let people know this is what I'm doing, or this is how I'm going to go after a different audience?
The thing that I think social media it's positive. Everybody talks a lot about its negatives, and there are a lot. I think we're all familiar with what they are. Some of the positives can be like, it is a storytelling venue. It is a storytelling format. It's not just an advertising format. And what we're really trying to do with our social media is tell our story. That's what we try to do with our menus. That's what I try to do as a chef in terms of what I'm cooking. And so visually and with few words, we're trying to use our social media to tell the story of our farmers, Kentucky's food culture, the restaurant plates and what they look like. But it's not all just, it's also about the people that work in our restaurants, who you might see there, our guests that come to our restaurants, our locations, and what they say about Kentucky's food culture. But it's very, very hard to get folks' attention because of social media. So that's the downside.
Like they're drawn more and more to storytelling, and you're taking storytelling and your love of Kentucky and cooks and produce one step further by not only being the chef of a docuseries, You Belong Here, but the host and the executive producer. Talk about putting on different hats. How did You Belong Here come together, and why was it important for you to be a part of that project?
Oh my gosh. I really, I find studio cooking shows boring.
Yes.
And I find competition cooking shows are getting that way because there's just so many of them. and they're getting weirder and weirder at times. But I really wanted to have a show that was kind of like Stanley Tucci when he goes to Italy, but all about Kentucky. Meeting all different kinds of, not about myself necessarily, although I'm your guide, I'm your host, but all about the different stories that we have here in Kentucky with chefs, farmers. I mean, we have such a rich bounty of locations. And so I had that as an idea. Mary Quinn Raymer from Visit Lex helped me apply for a grant from ARPA funds, and we were able to get we wrote a proposal for it. We were able to get a matching grant from the Kentucky Department of Tourism. And so we had 2 grants. We had 9 communities in Kentucky that bought into this grant that we received. And I needed some advice. And I went to a friend of mine. His name's Steve Zahn. He is a customer and I only knew him as a customer. He used to love to eat the meatloaf sandwiches at Wallace
Did
Station.
you know his background?
I didn't really
as
know.
an actor.
I did know he was an actor. I did know that he was an actor. But I have to be honest and say, when I first got to know Steve, I didn't know the breadth of his career.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I should look it up. And then I was like, okay, how stupid am I?
But what a perfect person to ask advice
He's
from.
an amazing, and his wife, Robin Peterman Zahn, is an amazing writer, a comedy writer, actress. And so the 2 of them gave me some excellent advice. And he had just started a production company with his partner, Rick Gomez, and who's also an actor and a writer, but a director. And this was during the writer's strike. We made this pitch to them to do this project. And they said yes, crazily enough. So it was a dream. I mean, to work with just incredible talent that are that creative with so much visual literacy. I can't wait for people to see it. It should be streaming this year. I don't know. I don't have anything to announce with that, but I know it'll be available for people to see this year. We're coming down the pike right now.
And so you focused on the communities of what, East Kentucky, Northern Kentucky?
We went to Northern Kentucky. We went to Covington. We went to Maysville, Corbin, Bowling Green, Owensboro, Somerset, Louisville, and Lexington. We have a fantastic Louisville episode. Louisville actually gets 2 episodes because of the breadth of what we were able to see and do here. It's really an amazing thing to see Louisville in the context of Kentucky. A lot of times, I'm not going to say anything, but sometimes people in Louisville don't go beyond Louisville that much into the state. But to see the significance of Louisville and what it means to the young people of Kentucky to have this kind of vibrant urban center here, it's critically important. And the creative juices that are flowing inside the city are just really inspiring. All the young chefs that live in Louisville and what they're doing, the pop-up culture of Louisville, the bar culture of Louisville. You can see the seeds of it in the past, but to see it coming into this new generation, it's very exciting.
And I love that you celebrate different parts of our state. Most people aren't aware in Somerset, one of the oldest music festivals, the Master Musicians Festival. I love that you're talking to chefs, you're talking to entrepreneurs, and I think I have found that when you give Kentuckians in all corners of the state a chance to tell their story, they feel so seen. It's like you don't know what doors that's going to open up for them. And I feel that with this series that put some light on Corbin, right?
Yes.
Put some light on. We talk a lot about Western Kentucky barbecue, but for Somerset and Corbin and parts of Northern Kentucky,
Paducah,
Maysville,
yeah.
right? These different areas to get attention, you don't hear so much about it, or they may get some negative connotations from stories that are from 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, what's happened in Eastern Kentucky? Well, let me tell you about the entrepreneurial field that's happening in Eastern Kentucky. So I just feel that I've noticed is when people have a chance to talk about the good things that they're doing, I just applaud you for doing that. I really do. I'm so excited
Thank you.
to see it.
Master Musicians Festival, I love. And B. Taylor does all the music for our series, and she started out at that festival, and we taped a whole episode about food and music and how both can inspire each other, and shot her at the Master Musicians Festival, giving a show. It was really great.
Has this already debuted at Tribeca?
Yeah, we were at Tribeca last. We were honored to be accepted, and we were last July. And then this month, or in March, I'm going to the Fork to Film festival in California. We've also been at ATX, the big television festival there. We were there just before Tribeca, and we'll be there again. I won't be able to attend that one, but we'll be I think maybe Steve or Rick will be there to talk about independent television and their role in promoting and producing shows for that.
This is a big deal. It's such a big deal to get the stage like that.
It's coming. It's hard for me sometimes to step back and see it because it feels like just time with friends. It was such a glorious time. And, to have the final episode being completed now and for it to be looking at streaming is very exciting.
I love it. All right, I'm going to wrap up with our rapid fire round, the Chef's Table edition. You ready? Cast iron or stainless steel?
Cast iron.
The one ingredient you refuse to use?
Ooh, calf's liver.
Bourbon in a glass or bourbon in the sauce?
Bourbon in a glass and bourbon in the sauce.
Both. Favorite bonus item? What's your favorite item to pair with bourbon?
Oh, sorghum. Sorghum, Kentucky sorghum and bourbon are the best pair ever, I think.
Love that. Late night snack, pizza or a ham biscuit?
Oh, ham biscuit. But when I have them,
Favorite cheap meal when you are not cooking, or even quick meal that you'll throw together?
Oh, that I make for myself when I'm not cooking? I hate to confess this, but I love ramen. And I also love frozen Red Baron's cheese pizza, but then I put all veggies on it. Like I like to take mushrooms.
That makes all the difference.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference.
Those are my two.
There you go. Oh, Chef Ouita, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I could go on and on and on, but we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you so much for watching the podcast. No matter where you're watching this right now, please leave a review because that gets the word out about this particular podcast. So until next week, have a good one, everybody. Cheers.